Hello, and we're back. Sorry. Sometimes, when you're doing an all-day kind of event like this, and there's a lot of stuff going on, we were just having a brilliant chat backstage about Tusk, which is going back to, if you saw the previous presentation, or maybe it was two presentations ago, we played the Netcore video. And it's got this kind of really thumping Tusk kind of beat to it. Anyway, so that's been stuck in my head for the last hour. It's gone now. I've taken care of it. So next up, we have a security spotlight. I'm not sure I want to call it. Oh, well, it's their presentation. Let them call it whatever they want. It's a security spotlight. How can marketers roll out BIMI? So welcome back to the expo stage, please. Rahul Powar, founder and CEO of Redshift. And bringing with him today is Chris Bailey, VP of Strategy and Business Development at Entrust. Rahul, how you doing, mate?
Good. Good to see you again, Skip.
We got to stop A, meeting like this, and B, we got to get different rooms.
Tell me about it. I've been trapped in this room all year.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris, welcome. You've got a great background, I have to say. I like the transom over your head there.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'll let you gentlemen get to it.
Great. Thanks, Skip. So hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Powar, CEO and founder of Redshift. We're a cybersecurity SaaS platform with a focus on automated email security. So the reason we're talking to you today is because we provide an efficient deployment path to one of the key components that allows organizations to implement the BIMI standard that you've heard so much about. I'm joined today by Chris. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chris Bailey. I'm the Vice President of Trust Services, handling publicly trusted certificates for Entrust. And I've been in this business for about 20 years and excited to be here. Thank you, Rahul.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. So we want to be respectful of your time, so we want to keep this quite focused. I believe this track is one of several where you can earn a certification. So at the end of this conference, each of you attending will be emailed an opportunity to become a certified email expert BIMI ambassador. I encourage you to pay attention, of course, and look forward to questions at the end as well. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. So we'll run through exactly what BIMI is, in case you don't know, and the key benefits of the standard. Also how BIMI relates to your brand and your company, the IT requirements for implementing BIMI, because unfortunately there are a few. We'll be looking at some of the early results of the BIMI pilot, discuss the timeline for becoming BIMI ready, and more importantly, the steps to take today if you want to be an early adopter. So that'll happen after this webinar. Do feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for them, and we'll try and answer a few of those at the end. So let's begin. So what is BIMI? Just as a refresher, BIMI stands for Brand Indicators for Message Identification. It exists to insert trademark logos inside emails. It was created to offer the internet an open and interoperable way to put a logo into an email. That means when a user opens up an email, your branded logo will be seen in the avatar box. Attaching that logo to your domain, which in turn should improve your brand recognition. BIMI is a way of standardizing the way to securely display this logo next to a message. And while you may think that displaying your logo is purely visual benefit, there are actually two prongs to BIMI, the visual aspect and also the security aspect, hence the title of our presentation. And we'll be touching on the security aspect a bit later on in the presentation. So what are the benefits? But simply, BIMI helps marketers create a consistent brand experience for email and improve brand impressions. You'll also be able to potentially improve your email deliverability with DMARC, depending on your current state. So don't worry if you don't know what DMARC is right now, but we'll talking about that later in the presentation. But in short, ensures that your emails you send are not vulnerable to trivial impersonation. So that's some of the security benefit. At this point, Chris, can I invite you in to talk about BIMI and how it relates to your brand?
Absolutely. So next slide. So we are actually going to be talking about how Gmail is running a pilot that supports BIMI via something called a VMC. And a VMC stands for a Verified Mark Certificate. You may have heard of this. It enables the Gmail web client to display an organization's verified registered trademark. The VMC itself is a type of certificate that holds both the logo that's been verified, and the organization information. And that information is securely conveyed to the mailbox provider, in this case, Gmail, which uses that logo to, as Rahul mentioned, to show inside the avatar location of the email web client, in this case, Gmail. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the project itself and the pilot. So we've been running this pilot for a while. We've been working with a small group of pilot customers. Primarily, these are mostly B2C customers that we've been working with several different types of customers throughout the world. Once the Gmail VMC support is generally available, then it will automatically appear, the logo will automatically appear in the environment. Of course, some things have to be implemented as well, including certain DMARC policies. So that's something we'll talk a little bit about later with Rahul's section of the presentation. But the intention is once the VMC is issued and these policies are set, it will automatically display. The general availability for the Gmail offering is expected to occur after a successful pilot. No date has actually been released yet for that, but it's something we want to prepare for today, and I'll go over a few of those reasons now. One of the reasons you might want to prepare today is the VMC requires the verification of a registered trademark. In case you don't have a registered trademark might take a few months to get. And I have an example here, up to 6 months or more to get a verified, to get a registered trademark verified with us. So this is something you would apply for with a local jurisdiction, say the USPTO or the European Union, and we're supporting 7 of these jurisdictions today, and we'll be supporting more in the future. But this is something, again, that takes several months. And if you don't have one, you need to apply for one. But you also want to check and make sure that that logo, that verified or that trademark is indeed the one you want to use and matches your logo. So, for example, I have here the Trend Micro logo with both the image and the words Trend Micro. And let's say that they wanted just to use the image. They can't actually use that unless it's also a registered trademark. So you can't just take a snippet of the registered trademark and decide to use that one piece. You have to use the whole thing. Go next slide. So the other thing to consider is the trademark itself, when it's applied in a logo, will actually fit into a 1-by-1 square. So you will it'll maintain the same aspect ratio of the logo. So when we shrink that down to fit inside that square where the avatar location is going to be, and sometimes it's cropped in a circle, then you might see that it becomes more difficult to read, especially if it has a character set along with the trademark. So as a general rule, you really don't want to exceed a 1-by-3 or a 3-by-1 on the trademark itself. And so this is something to consider now if you would like to use this, because although it can be used, if it's too much longer than the 1-by-3 or 3-by-1, it might be difficult to see your brand, especially if it has characters in it. So ideally, the best version to use is something that's already in a 1-by-1 aspect ratio. And that's the example I'm trying to show here in the ball for Trend Micro. And just as a side, Trend Micro actually has both of these trademarks registered. So both the ball with Trend Micro and an actual ball itself. To get the VMC, the verified mark certificate, we'll actually go through a few steps. One is the verification of the organization, including the right to represent the organization for the individual. We'll actually vet the trademark itself. And then we'll also do a video verification of the person requesting the access to the VMC, as well as a in-person notarization of that person as well. So once these steps are completed, we'll issue the VMC, but there's also some extra steps you need to do. I mentioned it before, the DMARC policy that you have to have marked for the sending domain and the domain. I'll let Rahul take that section.
Cool. So that's me. So the techie bit. So as with most technologies, from email automation tools, tags, or just sort of simple website updates, BIMI requires a little bit of help from your IT team. So why is that? As I mentioned earlier, there is a security requirement to be BIMI ready, as it were. In order to implement BIMI, you must be DMARC compliant. But the key thing is that you need to be DMARC compliant in your organizational domain, not just your marketing domain. So as shown by the diagram on the right, DMARC is a sort of foundational piece in BIMI. Without it, you can't really qualify for BIMI. And to dig a little bit deeper into what DMARC was created to do. So DMARC is a security protocol that stops people from sending emails purporting to be from your company. So you can prevent your customers from being a victim of a sort of straight up impersonation scam. Now, we've all heard the stories about customers receiving emails from someone pretending to be a known brand or asking them to update their account settings, for example. So DMARC puts a stop to a lot of this kind of impersonation when it's the exact domain, and so it protects your brand reputation. Now, as you can imagine, this becomes even more important if you're presenting your logos to customers in email. I'm sure no one wants their trademarks to be used by fraudsters to deceive recipients. So that's one of the reasons why it's a foundational component. Now, while DMARC is a security prerequisite for BIMI, it also comes with some key benefits for email marketing. As most of you probably know, most bulk senders are recommended to implement DMARC at some point so they can get feedback of the email authentication setups and a bunch of other benefits. So depending on your current state, you could see some improvements in your organizational level domain if you put these mechanisms in place. In addition, of course, to the security benefit of stopping your domain from being spoofed. So as you can see, the BIMI project has a few moving parts, and they're all for good reasons, right? To summarize, IT needs to help make sure that the apex organizational domain is ready for DMARC compliance, and legal needs to ensure that the logos that you want to put into your BIMI compatible emails are verified and align, frankly, with what you want to use. I mean, we've certainly had the case where our own logos have sort of drifted over the years to no longer be compatible with what we actually show customers versus what we filed with the trademark office. So those are the sorts of things that you really want to look at when you launch out your BIMI project. So how do we map this into a plan of action? So the number one thing to do as marketers is choose your logo and check that it's trademarked. So we can't stress this enough. As Chris pointed out, trademarks can take a really long time. So it's best to square that off right away. And then while you're doing that, ask your IT team to implement DMARC on your organizational domain. If you're unclear about what this might really involve, you can drop by our virtual booth at this expo and talk to one of our staff. We'll take care to sort of guide you and give you a quick audit of what the delta is today and help you get ready for BIMI if this is something that you want to be ready for. So once you have your logo and your trademark sorted, and IT have got your DMARC policy in place, or at least a path to, then Entrust will verify all of your documents and issue a VMC. So at that point, you're ready to publish a BIMI record with VMC. It's worth noting that if you have multiple logos, each logo will actually require a separate VMC. As you can see, these two departments have to be working at the same time to achieve both DMARC and VMC and really be BIMI ready for BIMI with VMC. Now, I know there's a lot to cover, but rest assured there's a lot of help out there. So there are a few more workshops happening on BIMI, including a panel at OnInbox Expo, so do tune in or reach out as you need help. As mentioned at the start, you can earn a certification if you pass the BIMI/DMARC quiz email to you at the end of the conference and be able to add that certification publicly with a few clicks. And so with that, I think we've rushed through pretty much all of our prepared materials. So I think we can open this up for questions.
Sorry, guys, you caught me off guard there. Didn't think you were going to get through quite that quickly. Actually, I've been staring at the chat because there's a lot of good information going on in the chat. I'm going to ask a couple of. These may seem really silly questions. These are my questions, and then I'll get to the questions that we've got in the chat. So you said. Chris, you said you're currently working within 7 jurisdictions. It might be useful to let people know what those are.
Sure. The jurisdictions are the US, Canada, UK, Germany, Australia, and the EU. And we're currently reviewing adding Spain as well. But these are the initial jurisdictions that we're piloting.
Okay. Okay, if you think this is too in the weeds, you can say that's too in the weeds, and we'll move on. But how's the system going to handle cross-border trademarks? So I've got a trademark in the UK. Somebody else has a very similar trademark in the US. I mail to somebody in the US. I don't maybe actively trade there, so I wouldn't have registered my trademark there. That just sounds like a recipe for a lot of grumpy trademark lawyers.
It can be an issue. One of the ways we're avoiding that is we're picking some of the larger trademark jurisdictions. Generally, companies actually will file in one of these jurisdictions, and so that limits that potential collision issue that can happen. When you're going to file for a trademark in the US, for example, and you're doing business in the US, you want to keep that trademark. So that might be one of the top trademark offices that you might file. Europe is obviously another one. But from time to time, we're going to be looking at these and trying to solve for that equation before it happens. But right now, the limitation in the trademark offices is the reason why we have it limited, and we're not doing all trademark offices today. Okay,
that's good. That's clear. Sorry, Faisal has asked me to ask Mike's question, so I'm just making sure I got Mike's original question, which I think is here. Faisal, let me know if this is not the question you wanted me to ask. How does all this work with shared IPs? And then there was some discussion about how they're using Klaviyo and they're getting their logo into Gmail currently, and there was some speculation in the chat that they've probably just uploaded a logo with their Gmail sending address kind of thing. But is shared IPs a thing? Is it an issue?
Yeah, I can talk to shared IPs, Chris, if you want to take the logo issue. Mm-hmm. So shared IPs are not a problem. The way DMARC works is it's not necessarily tied to the IP. It's a function of the IP from an authentication perspective. But the actual DMARC record and the BIMI record and those sorts of things are actually advertised on your domain. So even if you're using a third-party shared IP service, that's kind of warmed up and is sending email on behalf of a bunch of different customers, you're getting a unique fingerprint as from the point of view of the receiver, which is what's queried. So that's why DMARC is a little bit challenging, especially when you're using a bunch of shared IP services and a bunch of cloud vendors to actually deliver your email in the last mile. But it's well within the spec. I mean, we have customers with exactly that kind of configuration and are fully DMARC compliant and BIMI ready. And skip to order to answer your second question to that is as far as sending an email with a logo that doesn't have by Gmail doesn't have a VMC associated with it. You can do that as an individual if someone else is
is in your, I'm going to use the word circle. You can actually go back and forth and see your image in the avatar location. As a larger broadcast email sender, that doesn't work. So if you want to be able to send, say you're a major bank, or even sending lots of emails as a mid-sized customer, you need to have something like this in place to have that that logo displayed once, of course, it's generally available.
Cool. Okay, thank you for that clarification. We've gotten thanks in the chat, so well done, gentlemen. The next question comes from Norm Robinson. Has Entrust decided on the approximate cost for a company to get a VMC yet?
We're actually working on that. So we're waiting for the final specs to be laid out. Once we have that, we'll have a better idea of the final price. But it's currently in pilot, so we should actually be locking that down in the coming weeks as far as the actual process. But Gmail still needs to decide when they would like to have the general availability of this offering. So it won't be too much longer, though.
Okay. And again, this might just be my naivete, because I've never had to do this as a company person before. But I got to tell you, living in London, to get something notarized is a real pain in the. It's tough. That's not a thing we do here.
Yeah, it's a good point. We actually, that's one of the reasons we've been doing the pilot, trying to figure out how we can make this easier on our customers to do this. So we have been able to successfully do it in London, and we do all the arrangements and make that happen. Given COVID, it's obviously a much more difficult situation because of various lockdowns. But we have been able to work through it and come up with processes to work through those issues. So, but I won't lie, it has been a challenge during COVID. But actually, if it wasn't for that, I think it would be quite easy.
Okay. Yes, I totally feel your pain there. We have successfully gone through the process, so it does work, and it has got a really smooth operation for that.
I'm just remembering I had to be at the embassy once for something completely unrelated. Somebody just shouted out, "Would anybody here please witness my this document so I can buy my house in Florida?" Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't even know. Fine, I'll sign it. Whatever.
I can promise you, it's not chaotic like that.
Chris, that sounds like a pretty nice marketplace kind of way to do BIMI. We should just do that, right? Let's set up shop in Oxford Circus.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Let me know. I'll help you guys out with that. Okay, so here's a question. Can you please explain in more detail why DMARC compatibility is necessary at the org level, the org domain level, rather than just at the subdomain level?
I can try to take it, and then maybe Rahul, you can add to it.
Yeah, sure.
So this is actually part of the BIMI specification, and you can imagine it would be more secure if you're sending from a subdomain, mail.domain.com, for example. You might want to have domain.com also be marked for a DMARC policy of quarantine or reject. So it is a more secure method of doing it. The flip side, it does create more of a effort to have your DMARC set up for both those. But I think in this case, the security benefits outweigh the the convenience benefits. So Rahul, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean it's an implementer's choice ultimately. So what we're working off is here I'm going to go full geek. I think it's section 8.1 in the implementer's guide. And why do I know that? I just know that, which recommends essentially that organizational domains be in DMARC compliance. And you'll see there are a bunch of other requirements in there. So your subdomains need to have a policy of quarantine or above 100%. In addition to the domain itself. So if you're in the weeds with DMARC, you see the authenticator is working to kind of like set some fairly strong recommendations of how the domain needs to be secured in order to be eligible for BIMI, and I believe those choices were made to sort of ensure that BIMI doesn't have any opportunity to undermine trust.
I like that. I like the full geek mode with the quoting, the reference, and the whole thing.
Yeah, I go to sleep at night reading that spec. It's good fun.
It takes me back to the good old days of GDPR implementations. If you look at recital 42, sorry, that was not trying to imitate you. That was just my normal. That's my normal geek voice. Hang on, I had a great question and I've just lost it. Here it is. So I don't want to get into what about my country, territory. So Chris, you mentioned there are 7. You said you were looking at Spain. Somebody in the chat mentioned Israel. Is there a process for how you'll roll out jurisdictions, or maybe what makes a jurisdiction I don't want to say important enough because I'm not trying to minimize where everybody lives, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean there's going to be a demand based model. If we see a lot of demand in certain areas, we're going to be reviewing that trademark process to make sure it looks like something that we can vet, that we can make sure we have the proper controls around it so it doesn't cause the other trademark offices to be diminished in some way in the threat vector you mentioned before. But certainly, we're going to be adding more, and these are just where we're starting for right now.
Okay, excellent. So that's pretty much all the questions we've gotten so far in the chat. Let me just see. Yep, that's all the questions that I had. Do you guys want to just give a final thought each?
Yeah, sure.
Or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw one in the ring. I mean, I think this point about sort of organizational domain versus marketing domain, I think, is a pretty important one, because I'm sure a lot of marketers in the room are kind of used to doing SPF, doing DKIM via their mail providers and just sort of getting that out the door. I think for BIMI, it does complicate that a little bit more. I think based on our conversation yesterday, we know that there are a bunch of moving parts to actually get this going. And so I think if marketers are really serious about being the first with BIMI and VMC, then there's a bunch of stuff that has to get done. And Chris's point on the trademarks, I think, is also really important. So I'd recommend people really start looking at this now if they haven't already, because time can run out pretty quickly. We've seen that with people who've otherwise been interested in jumping in on the pilot.
Yeah, I've got to say that the trademark thing is piqued up my interest. I know that when I've been involved in getting trademarks before, I've only ever done that here in the UK, and there's actually a built-in delay, because you register for the trademark and you're granted a conditional trademark, but there's a right to complain about that trademark that I think lasts. It's a period of time, 6 months, maybe even a year, and you'll get all kinds of people that'll write in, and then you've got to defend why your trademark is not infringing on them, and it's a long process. So definitely, if you're interested in this, if you haven't started it already, get in there. Chris, anything to finish this off with?
Well, I just want to iterate that point. It is a process that you have to go through. And if you have one, then great. If you don't have one, we'll certainly help. And you to kind of think about how you want to go through that. So feel free to reach out. It's just a process that you have to go through. But we are very excited about this process, especially with the Gmail's pilot. Doing this with even a small batch of customers is still something that we think we're seeing lots of exciting activity happening from our end, without getting into that sales, that kind of sales mode. We're seeing a natural traction point. So there's definitely going to be a demand for this, and if you want to be in that kind of first mover, definitely look at that trademark information and get your DMARC status, policies properly aligned to support that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Chris. There's a lot of moving parts, and it is quite a big project, and I definitely move sooner rather than later, because if you're not in that first mover group, you're going to be in a wave of people that are all trying to get it all done at the same time. It's fundamentally like GDPR all over again. We knew about it for 3 years. Why did we wait until the Friday before it went into effect to try to resubscribe our entire list?
Yeah.
Anyway, gentlemen, thank you both very much. That was great presentation, and great chat afterwards. I really enjoyed that.
Great. Thanks, Skip.
Yeah, thanks, Skip.
All right, I guess see you soon. Okay, now we are rolling on into the evening here in London. And next up on the expo stage, is that? Let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. What time is it? It's 7:15. Okay, next up at the on the expo stage, it's been a long day, is Rafael Viana, who's a senior email strategist at Validity, who is going to be talking about LGPD and email marketing. And basically all you need to know about LGPD and how it impacts your email marketing strategy. Brazil's tough new privacy laws explained. So join us in 15 minutes for that. In the meantime, if you're here in the UK, maybe grab a little snack. A little cheese might be nice right about now. Maybe a glass of wine. Hit the expo area and go to the networking area. But before I forget, I wasn't kidding in the chat on that last presentation. All the stuff that was covered by those two guys is going to be on the quiz. And if you don't have the upgraded ticket, you got one chance at the quiz. If you got the upgraded ticket, you can watch that presentation again, take the quiz again. But if you don't, you'll get the quiz Thursday, I guess. And by that point, it's too late to get the upgraded ticket. And you got one shot at the quiz if you want the certification. So if you're thinking about getting any of the certifications that are on offer here at the conference, go ahead, go into the expo hall, get that ticket upgrade so that you don't fail the quiz, because that'd be horrible. It's not really a quiz. It's actually a proper certification test. So I should not call it a quiz. But anyway, it's an exam. So join us back here at 7:30. And until then, see you there.